Welcome everybody to Haven of Horror. We got TheDayGhost and Doolittle. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm very tired, but that's okay. I've been movie watching, trying to prepare for all these reviews.
Yep.
So we're gonna start with Psycho. This was my first viewing, as Austin has constantly given me shit for. So I'm gonna let Doolittle tell us a little bit about Psycho before we jump into the discussion.
So Psycho starts out as sort of just like this crime thriller movie. Lots of suspense initially. About a woman who steals money, or who is trusted with money, but she decides to keep it for herself. And there's a lot of suspense kind of about her getting caught with the money. And then eventually she stops at the Bates Motel. Um, and one thing leads to another, and she gets stabbed in the shower. It's a very iconic scene. And then the rest of the movie is basically kind of a mystery, like not a mystery for us, but kind of like the characters trying to figure out what exactly happened, with her character. The money subplot gets kind of dropped after that point, and it's um it kind of just keeps spiraling and spiraling. And I feel like the kind of a big thing with this movie is probably escalation. It just keeps getting even more and more. We start with what we think is like kind of like the initial kind of moral uncertainty with this character, and then we travel deeper and deeper until a psychological unraveling with Norman Bates's character, um, which is really really interesting. And yeah, that's kind of my basic kind of overview of the movie. I really like it. It's a classic movie. Hitchcock. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Yes, it is. I had to unmute myself because I didn't want to like interrupt anything by accident. So I agree with all of Doolittle said. I think what anchors this movie is Norman Bates, who is played by
Anthony Perkins, who's
Anthony
awesome.
Perkins, who is awesome in this movie.
Role of a lifetime.
He somehow managed to both be unnerving and kind of pathetic at the same time.
Yeah, because you also feel for him. Like, obviously, we all know the twist now, but before you do, you kind of feel for him when you think that he's just kind of covering up for his mom.
Yeah. And it's we've talked about this before, but it's an interesting choice when thinking about kind of adaptation in film. The choice to make Norman Bates this more sympathetic character, because in the book, and I haven't read the book, but I always thought it was fascinating that Norman Bates in the book was an overweight man, socially awkward with glasses. Whereas in here he's a bit more likable and he's a bit more sympathetic from the get-go, while still kind of unnerving in a lot of ways. There's something kind of uncanny about him. I always thought that was a very smart change and choice.
Yeah, because I haven't read the book yet either, but I always get the sense that it's kind of that more like traditional what people think of pre-Bundy as what a serial killer is.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah.
Not to jump the gun here, but I want to say I think the first half of this movie is perfection. I am with the movie 100% until the shower scene. And then that's when the movie kind of started dragging for me in places.
Yeah, so Janet Leigh is like an amazing lead in this movie, and I think that twist, I guess you can technically say that's a twist with the shower scene, is like completely perfect, but they don't have a lead that is as good as she is after that. And I don't think they're bad by any means. Like, I think I appreciated it more this time than I did last time I watched it. Especially because you're with, the private eye a bit more than I remembered too. But I do think it is slightly hurt by the fact that they don't have anyone as good as she was after that. But also, like I don't really know what to do with that because obviously like everything about that and her role is perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and like I'm sympathetic to the movie because like how do you replace Janet Leigh, who is awesome in this movie? But I started to notice it. I think around the time where they finally go back to the hotel for the final time to like try to find out what happened to Marion. I was like,
Yeah.
the first half of this movie flew by. This is dragging. Like, can
I
we get
definitely
this
didn't
over?
have that, but that's fair.
It might also be because I was trying to scrunch 3 movies into like 4 hours, and I was not very successful. But I got 2 out of 3 done.
That's fair.
So I'd like to watch this again when I'm not like trying to rush and see if I have that same thing. But overall, I like this movie a lot, and I mentioned in our Discord, uh, and Austin was like, "Of course, this reminds me of an episode of Angel."
Of course.
So there is an early season 2 episode which is a flashback to Angel's past, and he's holed up in a hotel and he meets this young woman who was a bank teller who,
Oh,
out of desperation, stole a bunch of money from her employer and is on the run. Um, and I didn't realize they were doing kind of an homage to Psycho with that.
In other news, Psycho, iconic, influential.
no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, I just
I don't.
didn't realize it because I hadn't seen the movie. But
Mm,
I thought that was
that's a
fun.
fun.
Watch as Angel.
Watch Psycho.
I did.
No, it's for the audience because it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh yeah, watch Psycho. So I guess we'll start with Marion. She steals from. Is she working for like a loan person or?
Yeah, it's got to be a real estate thing because he's buying a house.
She's working for a real estate agent. This jackass comes in. It's like, hey, darling, I just happen to have like $40,000 right here in cash. I'm not like making. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It just that cracked me up, and I think it might just be like the time difference area. Because obviously, you wouldn't walk into a place with 40 grand in cash unless you're doing
Yeah.
something illegal.
I mean, there's also just
Oh,
kind of like 60s dialogue too.
Yeah, it was just really funny how they were like, "We've got 40,000 cash. Gee, it'd be a shame if something happened to it." Um,
well, I think that it's also interesting that her kind of motivations for taking the cash as well. That it comes from uh, a place of infidelity, just kind of in the first place. I thought a lot of that was really interesting. Definitely very groundbreaking for the time for them to be tackling those issues for the time. Um, I think the movie's breaking ground for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's
well,
some cool visual stuff with that. Like when she takes the money, she's like getting dressed and she's got a black bra on, and then when she decides to go back with the money, she takes her shirt off and she's got a white one, showing her impurity and now like going back to purity.
Yeah. Good point.
yeah, and it's the oldest motivation in the world. Do something wrong, just try to like keep the person that you love. Um,
You got to get with Sam Loomis. Our first Sam Loomis of the night.
yeah, that was the other thing I thought was funny because I knew that Loomis came from Psycho. Oh,
There goes my
Oh,
light. Oh, yeah,
the
Albert.
lamp.
oh my God,
All
he's the
right.
DayGhost again. Anyway, it was amusing to me because I knew like in the back of my head that Carpenter had pulled Loomis from this movie, the name, but then it just
Yeah,
like it's
Loomis and
something.
Marion.
It just kind of clicked with me. Loomis goes through like 3 different decades of horror now because Scream is Billy Loomis.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Yeah. Um. Well, and of course, also Janet Leigh's daughter is Jamie Lee Curtis. So that's cool.
It's all connected.
Yep.
We're gonna
Yeah.
get a horror cinematic universe
Yeah, they both appear in the fog. It's just the fog.
and H2O.
And fog also has Ben Tramer.
Oh wow.
We need the John Carpenter shared universe.
It's the
No.
fog.
Well, I guess it's the fog.
Well, no, you'd have the fog, and then you'd have Michael Myers walking through the fog, and you'd have the Thing in the background, and it'd be
The
called
Thing
Michael Myers
and
versus the Thing.
Jack Burton shooting them all.
They're all after Jack Burton, yeah. And I don't know where
Oh,
the
that's pretty
ghosts of
good.
Mars show up.
No.
Terrible.
But anyway, so she steals the money and then she goes on the run. So some of this might just be missed because it's my first time watching. I know she says her motivation to like Norman, but I couldn't. I thought she was joking, where she's like, "I'm gonna go buy an island." Where was she actually supposed to be headed?
To Sam Loomis.
No, yeah, she wanted to start a life with him.
Oh, okay. I thought he was back in the town that she left. Okay.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
No, I get
No,
you
yeah,
now.
she was just making something up to Norman.
I knew she probably wasn't really gonna buy an island. I don't care what time period it is. 40 grand's not gonna buy you an island.
When they make a
Mm.
point that the sister has to like leave town to go find Sam Loomis where he works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then of course it's what 30 minutes until Norman Bates shows up. Longer than that.
It's pretty into the movie. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure the exact minute count, but probably about
probably
half an
around there.
hour.
And then of
Yeah.
course he's instantly great. And I was kind of with the movie up until then. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I like what they're doing. But it was that scene, Norman's introduction scene, that hooked me. I was like, oh, I actually really like this movie.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the scene when they have dinner in the parlor is great.
Yeah. He
Very intense.
just kind of rambles, but it's like a good kind of, like, you can tell there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah, and if you ever want a like comparison of performances, watch the remake version of that scene because Vince Vaughn hams it up so much and makes it so obvious that he's evil.
So I do actually kind of want to watch the remake. I'm too curious. I know it's gonna suck, but I'm too
You
curious.
basically just watched it.
No, but I gotta see Vince Vaughn. I have to like see it to believe it.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious too, to be honest. I mean, I know it's probably super, super terrible, but like, that's just too weird.
Have
Kind
you
of like
seen it,
alternate
Austin?
universe.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh,
You
okay.
have? Okay.
We'll do a
Yeah,
commentary next week.
The only good addition that it has is that the director of that movie is being yelled at by Alfred Hitchcock's cameo from the original.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
And then so the hotel, she gets to the hotel, they have dinner, and you hear this was where the movie got a little goofy, because up until then, it was pretty serious, like, kind of drama. But she can hear his mother from the hotel when the house is all the way up there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of film logic.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me. It's just that's something that popped in my head. It's like, wait a minute. How did she hear any of that? Did she have like a bullhorn when she was yelling at Norman? And I assume also that's supposed to be like, that's Norman talking to himself, right? It has to be.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The
And she doesn't
chickens.
like things that disgust her because they disgust her.
Mm-hmm.
So under his mother's because his mother doesn't like her, she kills Marion. And then we shift perspective to the sister, because
Yep.
Marion goes missing, and they're like, oh, she had to have taken the money and ran. And then it's kind of just us. Would you say, Austin, that part of the problem is it's them solving a mystery that we already saw play out?
I don't know, because I enjoy them like kind of piecing things together. But I guess like that could be, for me, I think it's just the actors for Sam Loomis and the sister aren't as captivating as Janet Leigh. That's my only real issue with it.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Doolittle?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, because I think part of the intrigue of the second half of the movie is kind of extrapolating uh what exactly the motivations were and why that happened. And I feel like there's a lot going on there for sure. But I can understand where you guys are coming from with the actors specifically not being as captivating. Because you're right, it's not a fair standard. You know what I mean? Like Janet Leigh is really really good as Marianne earlier in the movie. So when you switch to the other actors who are really good, it's just like not fair to compare them to her 'cause she's really good.
I do think there is still some good, like some great stuff. Like
Sure.
I think the ending is great. When they finally get to the house. I think Arbogast talking to both Norman and then investigating the house is really good. 60s effects aside.
So I was just
Um,
about to say, because I was thinking about this. I don't like the second half as much. However, I think my favorite scene in the movie is probably the detective, like or the private eye. What is his name?
the villain, the
What?
Mouse Detective,
I've never seen that. Um, what's the detective?
Great
Arbogast.
movie.
Arbogast. Interrogating Norman. Like that is I think most tense scene in that movie. Just the way that Norman's actor plays it.
It's such a
Yeah.
good like tet for tet. Like you can see the wheels turning on both men, and like how Norman's trying to piece everything together on the fly, while Arbogast is kind of like poking holes into the story.
So then let me ask you this, because moving on to '60s effects, I'm not really a filmmaker, and I don't know enough about '60s and film uh, to be to know this. So I figured I'd ask you guys, why does that look so bad? Surely it's as simple as just putting a bag down and letting a stuntman fall, right?
Well, because he wants that specific shot, and
Oh,
it's because it's supposed to be, like following him, like kind of stumbling down the stairs. But they went with rear projection, and it's just slightly off, so it just kind of looks awkward.
looks
I
very
don't really
awkward.
have like I don't like it's something I just kind of laugh at and go along with, but um, the kind of scare before that though, where she walks out through the hallway is great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I mean, I feel like most of this movie has pretty good well, sitcom
That's
effects.
the one moment, yeah. And
Yeah,
it's just kind of like a silly, like, oh, it's a '60s movie, laugh and then move on. And that's
yeah,
kind of it.
exactly.
I had
Mhm.
Because
that
like
same
the stuff,
reaction.
because like the stuff with like the shower scene is really interesting, and specifically the aftermath, which I
Big
don't
cut
think enough
too.
people talk about,
Hmm.
is like impressive. Like she had her eyes open the entire time while they were shooting that after that the shower scene. Like that's impressive that they were able to do that.
That's really well done.
Yeah.
Um, I was
And it's
really
just
impressed with it
chocolate
as well.
syrup, and it looks great.
Yep.
That doesn't surprise me because George Romero did the same thing for Night of the Living Dead. All the blood in that is just chocolate syrup. Could get
Yep.
away with that in the '60s.
Black and white.
Yeah. So we're running a little out of time here, so I'm gonna touch on two other things that I want to talk about. One, the music. The music is wonderful.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah. Hitchcock gave the composer a raise and was like, "This movie is like 50% you," or I think even more than that. But also, Hitchcock didn't want the shower scene to be scored. He wanted it to be perfect, like just silence. And she made score for it anyways. And then he ended up putting it in just to see what it would look like. And then obviously realized he was wrong about that.
the other thing, and I don't know if this is something where I just don't have the historical perspective on this, but I kind of wish they had cut out the whole like monologue that the psychiatrist has explaining the whole thing.
So yeah,
That's
that's
the biggest
definitely
issue
the
with the
time.
movie. It's
Yeah.
very much it's the 60s and we don't trust that the audience is going to understand this. So we just have to have a quick scene where we explain everything. everything around it is awesome. Like the scene with Norman like sitting and the mother's voice talking, and then you get like
Wonderful
the
scene.
flash of the skeleton face over his is great. Everything before that is
Yeah.
great.
I didn't notice
But
the
that
skeleton
scene is
face.
it like superimposes on kind of like what they do with The Exorcist.
Oh, I'll have to rewatch it.
It's so interesting that the movie is so ahead of its time that they had to bring a psychiatrist into the film to explain what was going on. Like that's very, very weird, but it also makes a lot of sense given how groundbreaking the movie really is and what it was touching on. And yes, that ending scene is incredible. Like I'm not even gonna swat that fly. You know what I mean? Like, very iconic for a reason. It's just so powerful.
Yeah, and again, Anthony Perkins is just perfect. He's literally just sitting in a room looking around, and it's perfect.
Yeah,
It
that
is one of the
stare.
best shots in any horror movie.
It's great. Yeah.
So, Doolittle, any final topics or thoughts you'd like to discuss about Psycho?
Uh, Not really. It's really good. And oh, um, I no, never mind. I was gonna bring something up, and I was like, nah, I forgot.
Austin, any final topics or thoughts for Psycho?
This is the first film to show a toilet being flushed on camera.
That was a big thing, yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
And the special features, they're like, could we do that? I'm not sure if we can do it. Let's just try it. It was like, oh my god, like that's not a
There
conversation you would
there are
have
some
today.
things about old censorship that just baffle me.
Yeah,
Uh,
you couldn't
It's
say
a big
pregnant
part of the
on
plot.
TV. Yeah.
but I'm gonna give this a 4.5 out of 5. I think it is almost a perfect movie, but there's a couple little things here that hold it back from 5 out of 5.
I'm
But overall, this is a wonderful movie, and I'm really excited to watch it again. Austin, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been going back and forth on this, and it also helps that I had a better experience with it this time than I did last time. Not that I had a bad experience last time, but last time I had more of an issue with the kind of characters that replaced Mary, and like I said, I also think that no film is ultimately perfect. Every film has mistakes, and especially you gotta, take it for what it is when it came out, all that jazz. And I will give it a 5.
And Doolittle.
I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
Oh, one movie down for the 5 out of 5 list. But yeah, I can definitely understand why someone would give it a 5. I just think it's the two big things holding it back is A, the psychiatrist scene that doesn't need to be there, and B, I felt the second half dragged a bit. But yeah,
Totally fair.
this was fun. I'm glad I finally watched this. And tomorrow our Halloween review will be out. So if you guys haven't watched the rest of our reviews, feel free to check them out, and we will talk to you guys later.